Welcome! In this video we will continue the creation of our SVG charts application and add form tabs with the PowerBasic Windows Compiler. This is our charting application at the end of the last video. Since the chart is going to display several columns, what we're going to do today is we're going to add a tab control to the form. Each tab on the control will be used to handle one column within the chart. So, how do we do this? Well, we have to go to our Forms Designer. In our Forms Designer, it displays the basic form. In our toolbox, we have a tab control, which we can position on screen, as so. And if we double click on this, we'll see it's been given the name IDC underline tab 1, which is fine. We have a number of styles. We'll leave it as tabs for the moment, and we'll just take the basic defaults for this one and see how it looks. So if we save that and come out of the Forms Designer, and if we run the application now, we'll see that our application has a plain, what looks like a text window on the screen. This is our tab control. What we need to do now is to tell the system how many tabs we wish to display. So if we have a look at the code for the form itself, we'll see right at the bottom, there's the entry that added the tab control. Basically just positioning it on the screen. Now if we have a look at the help on tab, we'll see there are a number of things you can actually do on a tab control. What we're looking to do is to set the number of tabs. So the tab insert page is the one we're looking for. So let's put that in. Now we know the handle to the tab. We'll make the page number 1. We have no image yet to put onto the tab, so we'll just leave the image as 0. We want to put some text in there, so we'll call that column 1, and we can optionally set a callback function to handle the events on the tab. Now we'll leave out the callback function for the moment, we just want to see what actually displays. And the value that gets passed back here is the variable for the page dialog. So we will just create that as a long, and we'll declare that up at the top of the form. So just to give us an idea of what it will actually look like, we're going to insert 2 tabs, column 1 and column 2. And if we try running that now, there we have 2 tabs, quite easily selectable and displayed on screen. In this application we will probably want the same information stored for each column, therefore the controls on each tab will likely be the same. For the purposes of demonstrating what you can have in different tabs, what we're going to do today is set up different controls on each tab. So first thing we'll do is we will create an event handler for our tab control. So we're going to create a function to handle all events happening on this particular tab. Now in our event handler for the tab, we're going to put just the basics in. We'll return to this event handler when we have some events to handle. If we go back to where the code is actually set up for the tab, we can see from here what we've done so far. We've inserted 2 blank pages. Now we may want to make this dynamic, and we may want to hold the values we get back which are the handles for the individual tabs. We will want to have a variable number of tabs shown on the screen. So how we're going to do that is we're going to ask the user how many tabs they would like. Now we will default to 1 in this case, and we will center the number in the box, and we only want numbers in this case, so we'll take the ES number option. So we will default to having a single tab. So what we're going to do in our event handler for the form, where we're picking up all the events, we will put a new event in. And we're picking up the change to the value. Now we're going to store this in a global variable called tab count. And as each tab created will have a handle to it, we're going to store these in a global array. So that when that value actually changes, we can update the array. So when the program initially loads, there will only be one tab. So what we want to do is when the form is initiated, we want to basically create the tab. So if we nip back to our code, we're going to steal the logic that sits inside here, and we're going to put this into the initialization event of our form. So we know the dialog handle in our event is this. We know our tab is going to be, the tab control is going to be called tab 1. Initializing was the first tab, we're calling it column 1, and we're storing this in this variable. So at this point, what we will do is we know the form has just been created, therefore the global array effectively will be or should be empty. So what we want to do is get our global array and reinitialize it. Now what we can do is we shall redim the array as only having one element, and then we will insert into that element the value we've just picked up. So we have stored the value. Now if the user decides to go in and add more, what we will need to do is we'll need to redimension and preserve that array and basically add in this extra information. So down here, what we will want to do is first of all to pick up the value that the user's put in to work out how many tabs we're going to have. And we'll store that in a local variable called long tabs. So now we have the number of tabs. What we'll have to do is insert the additional number. Now we know that there will always at least be one tab actually created, and we want to make sure that the value the user is putting in is not 0. Now I'll just tidy up the indenting of this. So now that we've got that, and picked up the value of tabs, enter a number, and this will make it much tidier. We could put some message box on screen or something in the status box at the bottom of the form to inform the user that the tabs must be greater than 0. There must be at least one tab. And having got that, what we'll want to do is, depending on the number of tabs we've actually got at the moment, we'll want to go from there up to the value the user's actually put in. So we know the total number of tabs is going to be the upper bounding of this particular array, so we'll want a for next loop. Let's pick up the Right, so we now know how many tabs we have in total. So we want to go from that number to the number the user's actually put in. Now it's possible the user is going to be reducing the tabs. In that case we'll have to handle that slightly differently, but we'll assume at the moment they want to increase it. So we're still using the tab insert command. The tab number we're actually inserting will be this number here. Now if we have one tab already, we want to go from tab count plus one above the count we're actually on, to the number they've put in. And the text we want to put onto it will be variable. So we'll use the format command to pick up the tab number and turn it into a string so we can display it. Now we're storing this information in here. Now we'll want to put that value into the array, and we'll know it will go into there, but it's more efficient to redim the array at the beginning rather than do it individually. So what we'll do is we'll take that command out from there and we will redim up at the top. That way we'll only be redimming once, and we'll want to use the preserve option with redimming so we don't lose information on the tabs that's already been created. Now, we know the user wants to have this number, so this is what we're preserving. So if we start off going in with having an array with an upper bounding of 1, if the user then asks to have 5 tabs, we'll want that to be 5 in total. So let's try that out and see how it works. Right, there we have our 1 tab. So if we go in here and change it to 2 tabs, it becomes 2. Change it to 3, it becomes 3. 9 tabs. 10 tabs. There we go. Now we've got a small logic problem in here. It's not quite working the way I expected it to. Let's come out and try that again. Right, the problem with the code as it stands at the moment is, and it's worth going over this because this is the kind of problem you will actually find doing all sorts of development. We're picking up the change to the text column text box by looking at the change event. Now the change event is triggered each time the user presses a button on the keyboard and puts a value into that text box. So it works fine up until the 9th tab, but when you key in 10, the change event triggers when the 1 button is pressed and then triggers again when the 0 button is pressed. Now this is not exactly what we want, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another library to our code, which is the macros library. There is a macro in here we can use quite happily to restrict what the user is doing, one called set text limit. So if we go into our event handler and in our initialization page, if we put this in, we want the handle of the text box, which in this case was this one. That's the handle, and we want to limit it to 1 character. So if the user tries to type any more than 1 character, it won't let them. So if we run our code now, and we can key in 2, but if we try and key a second digit, the form will not let you. So at the moment, 9 is all you can do. Now all we have to do now is to get it to handle when the number goes down. So in our code here, we've picked up the number of tabs the user actually selects. Now we know the global tab count is the number we've actually got going at the moment. So what we need to do is we need to determine if the number of tabs the user is asking for is less than the number of tabs we have. Otherwise, the number is the same or greater. In which case we will just indent all of this. Now, what are we going to do to remove tabs? Now, if the user is asked to be 4 tabs rather than 5, then from the 5th tab onwards, we want to basically remove them completely. So we're going from the total number of tabs to the number of tabs the user wants plus 1. So those are the tabs I want to remove. So if we had 9 tabs and user wants 4, we'd want to go from 9 to 4 plus 1, 9 to 5. And as we are descending, we're doing it in a for next loop of a step minus 1. So each time we go through this, we reduce this by 1 until we get to this number. Now, having done that, we need to use a method for actually getting rid of the tab. And the easy way of doing that is to use the tab delete statement. The tab delete statement, we can point towards the dialog we're on. We know the handle of the tab, and the page number we're removing is a long tab. And then once that's all removed, we'll then want to redim the array, preserving what information is there, down to the number of tabs. So if the user wants to go down to 4 tabs, we'll redim it as that. And we can then pick up the total number of tabs as so. Or that would quite easily be exactly the same as that. Now if we try that code now, and if we go to 4 tabs, we get 4 tabs, and if we want to go back down to 2 tabs, it goes back down to 2, up to 5, down to 3. So we've now got something that lets us add and remove tabs. The question now is, how do we put controls onto the tabs? Well, when the first tab is initially created on the tab insert page, this is a point where we can start to put dynamic controls onto the page. Since we're going to be inserting controls onto each of these tabs, we may want to create a generic routine to actually do it. And what we'll want to pass, the handle of the dialog, the handle of the tab, and in this case we're passing the number of the page we're actually handling. So let's create this routine. Now we'll just put our variables in. So we have three variables, one for the dialog, one for the tab control, and one for the page, the actual tab on the tab control. So to insert each of these new controls on the page of our tab control, we need to use control add statements. The X and Y values I put in here will have to be specified. Now the first parameter will be the handle we picked up and stored in our global array, which was the tab handles. So we can pick up the tab handle from our global array based on the page number. And this value here is the first entry that goes in here. The second entry will be the unique handle to this particular label. Now, if you're not fussed about storing the handle of the label, which in this case I'm not, we can put a -1 in just to prove this works. Now, one error we will have to correct is that this array is not actually populated yet. If we have a look at our initialization, we're calling the insert tab controls before the array has been redimmed. So we have to move this piece of code above this piece of code. Otherwise we'll be getting an error. So if we try running this now, we will see that our text appears on the screen. Now if we add additional tabs, we will find that it does not appear yet on the other two columns. So we now have a unique label sitting on column 1. If we wish to populate this into 2 and 3, what we will need to do is, if we go to our code, this logic here will need to be added down here when we increase the number of tabs. So what we'll be passing would be the page number driven by a long tab, and if we run this now, and if we add more tabs, we will find that the label now appears on each tab. Now we can customize it, of course. So that each tab should now have a unique label. Our label is going to have to be slightly wider though, so we will widen the label on our control. There we go, that's column 1. If we add 6, then each of them will have its unique label. We can of course set the colour. Now if we wish to set the colour, we will need to have a unique number for the handle of the control we're about to colorize. Now we don't have that yet, so that is an unknown. And we'll look to set the foreground to be blue and the background to be default. Now what we can do is, since we know the page number, we're going to set up a series of constants to be used for each of our labels. So what we can do, we can pick up that value quite happily in a local variable. That's so. So in the first tab, this will be equal to 2000 plus the page number, which is 2001, minus 1, which brings it back to 2000. Now if we Replace this -1 with the tab label which we have calculated. This allows us to set the value of 2000 for the first one, and it will increment by 1 for each of them. So if we run this code now, we should quite happily get a coloured value for the label. And if we add some more tabs, each of these should also be coloured. So now we've done a short demonstration of how to add a tab control to a form, dynamically add and remove tabs, and put custom controls on each of the tabs. This is a short introduction to tabs, but we'll cover more in tabs in the next video. Thank you for watching.